Hello everyone. I wanted to take a few minutes of your time and go over the Conveyor Belt Project. This project will be divided into three parts. The first part is due in week 4 and it will ask you to create the WBS for the project. So basically you need to enter all the tasks and summary tasks. Then the second part of this project will build on part 1 and you will be asked to add more details to the project file. For example, adding resources and assigning them to your tasks, as well as creating a schedule table that reports Slack information. And as for the due date, this part 2 of the Conveyor Belt project will be due in week 6. And for the last and final part of this assignment, you will add a few more resources, give them an hourly rate, and then try to resolve the common problem of overallocation. And overallocation simply means that your resources are assigned to work more than 8 hours per day, which Microsoft Project automatically flags in your project file with a red man icon next to the task or the resource that has been overallocated. And this final part of the project is going to be due on week 8. So this might sound like complicated work in Microsoft Project, but this video will walk you through each part step by step so you don't need to worry. All right, let's go ahead and start with part 1 of this project. So here's a blank Microsoft project file, and per the week 4 assignment, which is part 1 of the Conveyor Belt project, I need to enter the work breakdown structure, or the WBS, and submit that project file in the assignment area. The details of what you need to enter are in our textbook in table A2.9, which is on page 626, I believe. So all you need to do is simply enter the tasks line by line, and then organize it using summary tasks. Now I don't need you to watch me do all the manual labor of inputting the tasks, so I will fast forward the coming few seconds and I'll continue right after when I'm done. So basically these are the tasks after I've entered them, and again this is from table A2.9 in our textbook. Again, I think page 626. And I basically have a little cheat sheet next to me that shows this table. You can also open up the table in a browser and just toggle between this project file and then the browser so you can see how you need to organize these tasks. And in general, on line 1, we have the project name, and then we have 4 subsections. We have the hardware section, then we have operating system section, then we have utilities section, and then we have system integration section. And to start organizing all these tasks, we basically use this indent icon up here. So for example, hardware needs to be indented under the project line. So I click on hardware, and then I go up here, and I click once on the indent line. Now what this does is it basically indents hardware under my project line. And as you can see here, there's a collapse triangle, and then if I click on it, it expands. Okay, and then again, looking at my cheat sheet, I see that this task, this task, this task, and this task, all the way down to assembly pre-production models need to be indented under hardware. So again, since I have them highlighted now, I'm going to click on the indent icon. Now I don't want it on the same level as hardware. I want it to be inside of hardware or under hardware by an indent. So I click on it one more time. And now you can see that under my project, I have a summary subsection called hardware, and under the hardware summary, I have these tasks. So now I need to do the same for the remainder of the tasks. My next subsection is operating system, so I need to indent that one time, and now it's on the same level as hardware. And looking at my cheat sheet, let's see, under operating system, it's kernel all the way down to network interface. So I'm going to indent that once, twice. And under drivers, I need to indent disk drivers and serial drivers once. So click on that. And then utilities. Under that, I need to, let's see, need to indent it once. Oh, sorry, so it's already indented. So to back out, well, you can do Control Z on your keyboard, or you can click on this icon, which basically outdents what you just did. All right, so under utilities, I need to, look at my cheat sheet again quickly. Okay, so highlight all these until shell. I'm going to indent them. And then under system integration, I need to indent the remainder once. Okay, now utilities needs to be indented once more so that it's on the same line as operating system. And then the same thing also for system integration. Now, again, don't be afraid if you make a mistake. You can always go back and fix things. You can always undo what you did. You can, erase something and type it again. So again, don't worry if you make any mistakes. You could always go back and fix it. So for system integration, I just need to indent all these one step. Okay. Now to check your work, basically, if you collapse all of them, well, if you collapse the summary tasks here, collapse this one, and collapse this one, and collapse that one. Oops, here we go. This is kind of like the bare bones structure of the project. You have the project, and under it you have 4 subsections. Even if you collapse the project as well, everything gets hidden. So just make sure that once you indent or out indent and organize your tasks, just make sure that when you collapse things and then you expand them, that they expand exactly like it looks in the table A2.9 in your textbook. Again, just make sure also that within operating system, there is a driver's summary, and then under that, we have 2 tasks that are sub-indented. So just make sure that it looks exactly like you see it here. And again, this is just a replica of what table A2.9 shows in our textbook. So basically, this is all what you need to do for the week 4 assignment. You don't need to bother with duration or dates yet. We're going to be doing that in part 2. So all you have to do now is just save your project and submit the project file for the week 4 assignment. So this is where we left off the part 1 of the Conveyor Belt Project. We basically entered the WBS with all the tasks and summary tasks. Now for part 2, it's asking us to enter the resources, the duration, and the predecessors for each task. So the first thing we need to do is we need to add the resources. And resources are basically, who's working on the project. The best way to add that is to go up to the top left under Gantt chart, click on the pull down arrow, go to resource sheet, and here's where you enter in the information. So if you look at table A2.10 in our textbook, I think it's page 627 or 628, it has the information that you need to enter for part 2 of the assignment. And if you look at that table under the resource column, you will see that we have 5 different resources. We have design, develop, documentation, assembly, and purchasing. So that's what I need to enter in this resource name. So I'll go ahead and type design, hit enter, develop, hit enter, documentation, enter, and then assembly, enter, and finally purchasing. Okay. The type of work, basically the 3 types. First one is work, which is basically the cost or the hourly rate per person. Material is we have any material, and cost could be any other cost that's associated with this project. So that's all we have to enter for this resource sheet. We don't have to worry about the standard rate or the maximum percentages, and that will be covered in another video, part 3. And for the initials, in case if since we have 3 resource names that start with D's, it might make sense to change the initials to be design, dev for development, and doc for documentation. And then A, there's only one A, which is assembly, and there's P, one P for purchasing. So we just have to differentiate between these 3 Ds like that. All right, now we can go back to our Gantt chart. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and enter the first 3 tasks in the table A2.10. So basically I'm going to assign the resource, I'm going to enter the duration, and I'm going to enter the predecessors. And then I'm going to fast forward for the rest of the tasks so you don't have to watch me do all that manual labor. So if I refer back to table A2.10, it basically says for activity 1, it's the architectural decisions. So I scroll down, here's my architectural decisions, and it says the resource that I need to assign to it is the design. So to enter a resource, you go to make sure you're on the correct line, and then under the resource names, and you can either type it manually if you want by going start typing and then hitting enter, or you can also, when you click in it, there is a pull down arrow and you can choose which one you want to assign. Okay, so these are just basically two ways to enter resource names. Second thing we have to enter is the duration. So again, for architectural decision from table A2.10, it says 25. So I'm going to hit 25, hit enter. And again, you can see that there's an up and down arrow, so you can change the value if you want this way, or you can also type it the way I had it. And last piece we need to give for these tasks is a predecessor. Now for architectural designs, it has a dash, meaning that it's blank, so I don't have to enter in any predecessor here. The next item is hardware specification. Oh, that should be somewhere under hardware. Here it is. The duration for that is 50, so I'm going to type 50, hit enter. For the resources, development and design. So go to the resource names, pull down, develop and design, and then hit enter. And then for a predecessor, okay, it says activity number 1. Now make sure that when you follow the predecessor numbers from table A2.10, that you follow strictly the numbers in the table and not these activity numbers here, because that might be confusing. So for example, again, for hardware specification, the predecessor, it says preceding activity number 1. So activity number 1 in the table is architectural decisions. So I'm going to go in the predecessors and then go to architectural decisions and then click on here. Okay. Now if I hit enter, nothing happens. So to get out of this pull down menu, I click on the escape button on my keyboard. So I hit escape, and now it shows up here. So again, you could use the pull down arrow, but for some reason, some of my students tell me that they don't have an option for a pull down arrow. So if that's the case, then you could also just enter the number manually on your keyboard. Okay, and then to get out of it, you just escape. And the next one is going to be kernel specifications. Again, I'm just following the table line by line. So kernel specifications, it says duration is 20. Hit enter. And kernel specification, the resource is design. So I'm going to go to resource name. Again, since it's just 1, I could start typing it and then hit enter. And then for the predecessor, kernel design, it says activity number 1. Again, activity number 1 is architectural decisions. So click here, architectural decisions, here it is. And then escape. So this is all that I'm going to be showing you slowly now, and then I'm going to start entering the rest of it, and I'm going to fast forward through it. When I'm done, I'll be back, and then we're going to discuss what everything looks like, and also I'm going to talk about these red men icon here, which is very important for this assignment. All right, so I'm back again. I entered in all this information. Again, the resources, the duration, the predecessors for all the tasks, and again, all based on the table in our book, which is A2.10. Now, I specifically left this task empty with the predecessor field because if you look at the table, it says we need to enter 17 FS, comma, lag 50 days. So basically 17 is the number of the activity in the table, which translates to actually order circuit boards, which is this task here, which is, for my case, is number 7. So all I have to do here is just click on it and then hit 7 and then enter. The FS part that's shown in the table is basically the type of relationship which is finish to start. So we have to finish a task in order for the next one to start. And all these tasks are FS relationships. The lag part is something extra, so we have to add that part. And to do that, so basically what you need to do is double click on the task name, a dialog box opens. We have multiple tabs here. We need to go to the predecessors, and you can already see that the predecessor has one which is ID number 7, which is this one here, which is order circuit boards. Again, that's the correct one. Again, the type is finish to start, or FS for short. And the lag time right now says 0. So this is where you would enter in the lag of 50 days. So you click on that and then just type 50, hit enter, and then do OK. And now you can see here that as per the table A2.10, it says 7 and then finish to start, and then with a 50-day lag. Now, one thing you might have also noticed after entering all this information is that we have these red men icons on the far left. And basically this means that we have over-allocated resources. So if you hover your mouse over any one of them, it says this task has been over-allocated resources. Right-click for options. So basically, some of, for example, the assembly resource or the development resource is working more than 8 hours a day on some of the days. And again, Microsoft Project flags that as a no-no. So we need to fix that. But again, this is not for part 2. This is going to be for part 3. Now, a few things that we need to also note about this project is the start date. I think the assignment or the book says that the start date needs to be something a few years back. Again, that's when the book was published, maybe. But it's okay to use a start date of something current. I mean, normally when you start a project and you enter in information, it automatically defaults to the start date of today. So since I'm doing this on the 19th of March, it automatically picked that as my start date. So again, you don't need to use the, you can if you want, but you don't have to. You can default to whatever the project start date is, or you can manually write it yourself as another date as you wish. Another thing to note also is after entering all this information up until now, you should have a total of 530 days for your conveyor belt project. If you don't, then you probably missed something either with your predecessors or a task, or the duration was off. So again, just make sure that by part 2 of this assignment, you should have 530 days after you enter in the duration, the predecessors into the project. Another thing also is you need to note is the critical path. The critical path of Microsoft Project can be seen on the right side here in the Gantt chart. Expand this a bit. And let me minimize that so I can see where my project is. Here it is. Move this a bit to the right. So right now I don't see my critical path. Usually it's going to show up in red here. So to see it, you basically go up to Format, and then here is the critical task option. Click on that, and then it shows everything that's in the critical path to be in red. Another thing also that you might be interested in looking at is the network diagram. And to access that, you basically go to Task, under Gantt chart pull-down menu, go to network diagram, and it shows it for you here. Let's also minimize it just a little bit. Okay, so again, anything in pink or red is the critical path. On the left side, we have the summary tasks. There we go. And then each one is, let me make it smaller just a little bit. Okay, so like for under hardware, we have all these tasks, and then the ones that are in red, if you hover over it, basically it enlarges so you can see it better or read it better. And then the ones in the blue are not part of your critical path. So this is the network diagram as you can see here. So I think one of the questions that does ask about comparing a network diagram versus the Gantt chart, which is here. Another requirement in the part 2 assignment of the conveyor project is we need to create a schedule table that shows our slack, and the slack meaning the early start, early finish, and late start, late finish, and also the slack column. So you can technically do it manually by clicking on add column and then typing early start. Here's the early start, here's the early finish. That's the manual way of doing it, which I don't want to do it that way. The quickest way is to basically go up here in this blank area and right click on it and then click on schedule. And what that does is it automatically displays your project, but with specific columns. The early start is the start, and the early finish is the finish, while the late start has been added, and then the late finish has been added, and then we also have free slack and total slack. So you can see that some uh, some tasks have slacks, and some tasks do not have slacks, like this one. This has a 5-day slack, this has a 30-day slack, and so on. So again, this is part of the requirement for the part 2 of this assignment. And the last part of this assignment is that we have a list of questions, so just make sure that you answer them. So again, to wrap up what part 2 was about, we entered in more information into our WBS, which had to do with the duration, the predecessors, and the resource names. And if entered correctly, that should give you a total of 530 days. So what you need to submit for the part 2 of this assignment is basically the actual project file, which shows all this information. Again, make sure that you have 530 days and you've inputted all the resource names and the predecessors. Also, please take a screenshot of the entry table, of the schedule table, which is this. So basically take a screenshot and then include it in your Word document. The Word document is the document that should have all your answers for the questions that are part of the this assignment, which is the part 2. For the final and part 3 of this conveyor belt project, we need to address these red men icons and the overallocation problem that we currently have. So there are basically a couple of ways we can fix these red men icons and the overallocation problem. The assignment is asking us to solve this overallocation problem within Slack, meaning that I don't want to change my time limit or my duration of the project. And then another time it says try to solve the overallocation using outside of Slack, meaning that don't worry about the time, let's just make sure no one is overallocated. And sometimes when you try to level or fix the overallocation, you still cannot do it within the time restraint or within Slack. So to start fixing the overallocation problems, we go to the resource tab, and then we need to focus in this level group. Now leveling is basically what it does is that it levels the working hours for the different resources. So let's go first to leveling options. Dialog box opens. And basically this has 3 different sections. The top section is that it says, well, do you want to calculate the leveling automatically or manual? We want to do manual because we need to control some of the options here. The next section is, do you want to level the entire project or do you want to level from certain dates, certain date range? I want to level the entire project. And now here's the question also says, do you want to level only within available Slack? And that's exactly what I want to do on the first run. The assignment is asking us to try to level the project within available Slack. So I'm going to check this box here, and then I'm going to click on level all. Let's see what happens. So this notification window pops up. Basically it's telling me that, well, even within Slack, within my duration, I can't resolve the design resource for this date. So I'm going to say, okay, that's one problem. Let's skip it for now. I get another one. Let's skip it for now. So obviously, as you can see, there's a lot of problems even if I do within Slack, meaning that my time or my duration is not going to work for me. So I'm going to click on skip all. Now what this does is it fixed some overallocation, but it also added some more. So within Slack is not going to work. So I need to do it outside of Slack. That's the second option, or that's the second instruction for the assignment. I'm going to go back to my leveling options. I'm going to take the level only within Slack unchecked. I'm going to click on level all. And now finally you can see that all my red men icon have changed. Now my red men icon have changed, but however, see what happened to my duration. it mushroomed. So again, it's kind of a balance. If you want to level the overallocation, well, you have to spread them over a longer period of time. Another way you can look at this is that, let me clear my clear my leveling, entire project. All right, so I'm back to here. Another way you can fix this over allocation is to basically go back to tasks and under the Gantt chart, go to our resource sheet. This is where we used to enter this information. Now you can see that these three resources are in red. Okay, now it's because one person cannot work 8 hours, but if I can get two people, then maybe that might fix it. So if I can get two resources of design, so if I click on make this 200, hit enter, and then make this 200, hit enter, make this 200, hit enter. So after doing that, you can still see that the first two resources, even with two of them, I doubled them, that they're still in the red, meaning that they're still over allocated. But the documentation resource, when I added the second one, making it 200, that did fix the over allocation. So again, that's just another way to do it. But for our assignment, just please stick to the, going back to the Gantt chart, stick to the leveling option, which is under resource. And then here, you need to do it once with this option here, which is within available slack, and then level it all. And then do it another time with without this checkbox, and then level it all. And then there are some questions that you have to answer for the assignment. So please, based on what you do in these steps, it will help you to answer the questions for this assignment. And so what I expect you to hand in for the part 3 assignment of the conveyor belt basically is a Gantt chart that shows the leveling within Slack, and then another Gantt chart that shows leveling outside of Slack. And finally, there's some questions that you need to answer, and you can write that in a Word document. For the two Gantt charts, you can either take screenshots and include that in the Word document for the questions that you answer, or you can submit two separate Microsoft project files, one for each view. So either way, I'm fine by that, but just make sure that you do show me before leveling and another one after leveling. Okay, so that pretty much wraps up the project conveyor belt. And again, this has been spread over 3 weeks. Part 1 is going to be due in week 4. Part 2 is going to be due in week 6. And the final and last part is going to be due in week 8. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions about this assignment, please do let me know, and I'll be more than happy to make more videos for you guys. Thank you for watching, and I'll be seeing you in class. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.